Hello, Lizzie here, and today we're going to show you how to make Flora. She's absolutely adorable. This is such a beautiful bag, and it has a few little extra bits in it, which obviously you can keep or you can decide not to do. Anyway, she is a download on my website, lizzycurtis.com, and she's absolutely glorious and actually quite an easy make, to be honest. So Flora has a few little things, little tricks up her sleeve. First of all, she's got pleating, and the pleating is back and front. You can just see it there, slightly off centre, and you can move that if you wanted to, but I actually wanted it to be slightly off centre. It's the way you crease the pleats that are on the pattern piece. She also has an invisible zip here, so if I sort of pull that across, you'll see that it actually has an invisible zip with a pocket just here. Isn't that absolutely lovely? So there's your facing on the top there, the top panel. And I decided to do mine in a contrasting fabric. I thought it looked quite nice. So we've got the task of putting an invisible zip in. And as I put the invisible zip in, I'll talk to you about other things you can do other than putting that in. At the back it's just plain, so there's no pocket there at all, so you can put another pocket in if you want to. The inside is actually gathered, so instead, I don't know if you'll be able to see, so instead of could do with a good press, I have to say. So if you can see, there's gathers in there. So instead of pleating the lining, we actually do some gathering. Nice long handles, because although that you could actually just hold that as it is, you could put it on your shoulder too. So it's got a great many sort of different sort of tricks up its sleeve, like I said right at the beginning. So this is Flora. And like I say, she's a download on my website, lizzycurtis.com, where you get the full pattern, the full pictures, the full instruction, and of course this fantastic video as well to help you make Flora. So all the pattern pieces are in the back. So if I just quickly show you one of the pattern pieces. So there's the top panel, so you can see what that looks like. It's quite comprehensive. Tells you where to stop and start stitching. That's for the front panel only. The back panel you stitch all the way across, but it tells you on the pattern, and it tells you in the instructions how this is put together. And like I say, it's very comprehensive. So a lot of time has been put into making the pattern up for you. So with Flora, there's one or two things that you need to do before we get going. So I've got all my bits and pieces here, and I'm going to put one or two to one side. You've got the front part, which is the pleating. So this is what your fabric looks like when you cut it on the fold. You then got marks where you are going to pleat, and those marks they're 1 inch apart with a gap of ½ an inch, 1 inch apart, gap of ½ an inch. It's intentional because it's the 1 inch marks only that you're bringing together. So if I show you on the side, and hopefully you'll be able to see, can you see those marks there? I'm going to hold it so you can see it. Do you see the marks? And I want you to, if I just gently push it, you can see where those folds are. So that first fold, for instance, if I get hold of that, it goes to that first 1 inch mark. There we go. So if I bring it, you can see. Then there's a gap of ½ an inch. So this 1 inch pieces go together like that. There's a gap of ½ an inch, and then this one goes to there. So it's the inch markers that are brought together to create the creases, to create the pleats, I suppose. Yeah. So if I try and hold it without the pleats coming undone, you can see how that looks on the back, how that looks on the front. You can just about see if I hold it well. Okay, so it's those markings that you need to follow. So that first marking there, you're taking to the second mark, which is that 1 inch gap there. And then, like I said, you've got a ½ an inch gap. And I'm deliberately doing this again because I know this is possibly going to be the trickiest bit, apart from putting the invisible zip in. And then you've got another 1 inch mark here, and that first one goes to the second one. You've got a ½ inch gap. Do you see where the end of that pleat is to there? It's a ½ inch gap, and that inch, those inch marks again are just brought together like that. Okay, and that's how you make your pleats. Give that a really good press. You can see mine has been really pressed well. And then we're going to top stitch that. So just going to my machine, I'll bring that in now because we're ready to start stitching bits and pieces. I'm going to start stitching the pleats, and it is quite a good idea to stitch so the pleats are sort of facing towards you. And you're going to do about 1/8 of an inch, something like that, to actually just stay stitch those pleats in place, or space them together, I should say. Now the seam allowances on this particular bag are 3/8 of an inch. It's just a little bit more than you would normally do. Normally I try to stick to 1/4 of an inch. If it's 1/2 an inch, I'll say, but this time it's about 3/8 of an inch, just that little bit more, and there's a reason for that. It's because we're putting the invisible zip in, and that kind of dictates, in a way, the seam width. So there is our pleats stitched in place. You can see now top and bottom, they're well fixed, so I'm pleased with that. Then the next part, really, we kind of do a bit of preparation work here, is to make the straps up. Now the straps, in the instructions, it tells you exactly what size they are. We're doing the usual thing where you can see I folded them in half lengthways, and I folded it again to give us that 1 inch strip. Now, I am using directional fabric on the top panels and the straps, okay? And because of that, my flowers, one side of my strap would be upside down if I just did one long strip. If you haven't got directional fabric, or it's plain, whatever, then you're going to cut one long piece. Because I've used directional fabric, I've actually seamed this in the middle. And if we look on the side, I want you to have a look. There's my seam just there. But you can see my flowers are going in opposite directions. You can see how they go here. The stalks are coming down, the stalks are coming down. And that's because when the bag strap is folded, the flowers go the right way one side and the right way the other side. So once that's pressed, and it's stabilised, by the way, everything is stabilised with a medium weight iron-on stabiliser. I use Visaline H250. You might want to use something else. I'll let you decide. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You might find that you don't want any stabiliser at all, and that's fine. So we'll just top stitch this, so we're ready to go. So you're going down both sides, even though you've got a fold on one long side. And just to save thread, I'm just going across the bottom. I'll just use my needle down facility. And then, whoops, and then come up the other side. So trim your threads as you go, keep them neat. There we go. And because we went across the bottom, we've only got one end to trim. So there's our two straps done. So let's just pop those to one side. Obviously we'll need those shortly. I've got my lining pieces here. I've got my top panel pieces and all the pocket as well. We've got those. I've already prepared one half of my lining, so I'll talk to you about that. We'll just pop those over there just for the time being. So now what we're going to do is to actually put the zip in. So don't panic, everybody. It's actually easier than you think to put an invisible zip in. It is handy to have an invisible zip foot because there's two grooves right in the centre there, which actually goes over the zip and opens it up. If you don't have an invisible foot like this, then I think the best suggestion is you either put in an ordinary zip and you have it as a design feature where you can see it, or you can iron the invisible zip open. So where it curls around the zip, it's not going to be easy for me to show you, but where it curls around the zip, open that up, just open the zip up and press that open and flat. And then you could probably get your zipper foot in really actually quite close. So please don't panic about rushing out and buying an invisible foot. They're handy if you've got them, but don't worry. Now in the pattern, it actually tells you to stitch the top panel, which is this one here, to the bag at about 1 3/8 on each side. So you're not going to stitch all the way across. You want to leave an opening, okay? So we're going to do right sides together. Now the panel, you can see it's shaped. You can see how my flowers are going up, and this is the top and this is the part that's actually joins onto your bag front. And I've actually on mine, I don't know if you can see, I'll show you to the side. On mine, I've actually marked it with a pencil where I'm going to stop and start stitching. So right sides together, and you can see that it doesn't fit straight. You need to adjust it as you stitch. But just bring point to point like that, and you're going to stitch from there to there, that's all. Use your regular foot at this stage and do a little back stitch. Like I say, it's about 3/8 of an inch. Don't measure it. You know, it's just, to be honest, it's just a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. So it's more. Well, you have a look on your imperial ruler, you'll be able to see. I'm afraid I haven't quite joined the metric bang yet. So the other side, so you're just manoeuvring that so it fits, because like I say, it's curves, and it's curves that are going in an opposite direction. So a little back stitch again. Okay. And just stitching that 1 3/8 in. So trim all our threads. So now we've got a piece that looks like that. You see it's got the gap there. So we're going to start putting our zip in, and to be perfectly honest, I like to open mine up, so I've got it so it's a little bit more manageable for me. And obviously this is way too big, so if I hold this up, you can see it's way too big. I have a habit of making sure that my zips are way bigger than I need to and trim the back. You might think that's really wasteful, but I find it quite useful. So I'm actually swapping my foot out now for a zipper foot. I'm popping that in. And you've got a little, in mine, you've got a little gap where you can manoeuvre the needle over to the right, over to the left. And I think with this one, if I remember rightly, I just go over, I think I go over two notches. It's one of those things, you either remember it or you don't, but you can, when you start to stitch, you'll know if you want to bring it over a bit. And it's like anything else, this is right sides together. So I'm opening up my seam here. Now, because we've got a gap to put this in rather than edge to edge, I need to place this over the top of my seam. So it might be better if I show you this side. So don't forget, like I said, it's right sides together. So let's just get that lined up for you. I'm going to open that up. So I'm going to line it up with the edge of my fabric. So if I line it up like that, you can see what that looks like. And I'm going to stitch right in there, but I need to know where to stop and start. So you're going to kind of have to, you can mark it on your fabric. I mean, to be honest, I know I'm going to start and stop there. So if I've got a pen, I could actually mark that's my start and stop. Just there. So when I fold, in fact, let's do it on the side that I can see it. So there's my start stop line just there, and I think when I get to the other end I'll be absolutely fine. So I'm putting right sides down onto my piece of fabric. It can go across, it can, it can be bigger. I'm going to trim all this back at the end, but I'm just doing right sides down, and I know I'm going to start stitching just in there. Just start from there, if you can see that. So I'm not starting stitching here, I'm starting to stitch from there. So once you put it under your foot, like I say, you need to get the zipper into the groove, and it's only when you start to do this yourself that you'll know what I'm talking about putting it into the groove. Let's just move that slightly. There we go. And the actual zipper teeth kind of go into the little notch, and at the same time it folds the fabric back. Sounds really complicated, it's so not. What I suggest you do before you attempt to make the bag and you want to do the invisible zip, practice on something else. So I'm ignoring the top panel, I'm literally stitching the zip to the main bag piece, okay? And I'm just going to move that needle back across again. There we go. And there we go. I keep moving that needle and I'm not sure it's moving. There we go, it's moving now. So I'm going to try and bring this in and I'm going to show you what this looks like. So if I just move it, if we can get right in there and zoom in there, you can see if I get something pointy, you'll be able to see. I'll use the tip of my scissors. So you can see that the zipper teeth are going into that little tunnel there, and my needle is going right next to it. Now you mustn't worry about popping over the top of the zipper teeth or anything nasty going on. That is going to sit in there beautifully. In fact, it's actually very easy. And all you're going to do, and I'll try and do this sideways, is that you're just going to stitch like that with the zipper teeth going through the tunnel there on the left hand side. I'm really hoping you can see that beautifully. So let me bring this back to me so I can see. So you're just following all the way along. You're stitching your zip the right side, as I said, to the right side of your back front. I'm moving my slider out of the way. This is why I like to use a long zipper, because it gives me the opportunity to not worry about the zipper slider. So now I'm coming up to the other end, and I just want to stop stitching where I started stitching that little 1 3/8 there. Just do a little back stitch, and that's 1/2 of my zip in place. And it kind of hugs the zip. I had to sort of lift it out of there. So let's just trim that away. So there's the top half of my zip installed. You can just see it there. I'll bring it in. You can see what it looks like. So now we have to do the other half, and that of course goes on the panel piece. So we need to flip that over. Now this time it's a little bit more tricky, because obviously we need to move the slider in. Okay, so we need to negotiate our way around that slider. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it right across. There we go. I'm going to take it right across my bag. I think it's got caught up in the thread. Just bear with me. There we go. So I'm going to take it right across. So I know I'm going to start in the right place with it. That's it. Got it now. The thing about an invisible zip, it is close to the seam. So you may find you need to just sort of manoeuvre that a little bit. So I have to say it's made a beautiful job of it. I still need that zipper teeth to be open when I stitch. But to make sure I've got everything in the right place, I've got my my slider fairly near to where I've started. Can you see? And if you want, I can trim this off so it makes a bit more sense. I don't need that now. So let me show you that again. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is right sides together on the other half. There we go. And I'm going to start stitching. In fact, I'm going to start stitching from the other end, but I just wanted to make sure that was all flat, which it is. So I'm going to open that up again now. But I still need to have the zip slider on my bag rather than off the bag. Normally, if I put a zip in, I'll have it just off, but in this case, I don't want it like that. And you need to start with this a little way away from the starting point this time. So where we started, see where we started here? You're going to start just sort of the other side of that. You're going to start about here, and we'll finish it off with a zipper foot, a regular zipper foot. So right sides together again. Just want to open that seam up. There we go, that's better. There we go. So right sides together again. Let me show you on the side camera. I want to make sure that you're seeing this fine. So look, I've opened up my seam just there. I've flattened that out, and that zip now lies over the top. I don't want to stitch any of this. I mean, I can cut that off to save confusion, but I'm going to start stitching about here onto my panel piece because I can't get my foot anywhere near to that slider. You'll find the same. So get as near as you can, and then what we'll do is we'll change to a zipper foot and we can just finish that little bit of seam off, and that's perfectly acceptable. So again, we're just popping it under the machine. Don't forget, this is about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. There we go. And to be honest, you can't get very near to it, but do the best you can and get as close as you can. And then we're doing right sides together again with that zip tape and the panel this time. And that the little tunnel, if you like, in the zipper foot, the invisible zipper foot, is just perfect. The zipper teeth are going right in that beautifully. So now I'm just manoeuvring my bag a little bit. Just want to come as far as I possibly can. Fantastic. Little back stitch there. Take that out of the tunnel. It doesn't want to release it. Just snip my threads, make it all nice and neat. I'll trim that back now so it doesn't confuse. You don't need that on there. There we go. So now what we've got is we've got a little gap to close just here. You can see that. But we've got the zip installed into the bag beautifully. And if I bring that along, you can see that as I close the zip, once we've stitched that end, you can see how beautiful that looks. Doesn't it look nice? Nice and neat. Okay. So let's just keep it open for the time being. Got to put the pocket on next. And if you want to, give that an iron so it just keeps all that zipper flat. So if I show you what it looks like on the side camera, you can see it's the pleats that are making that stand up a little. Let's just bring that down. There you go. That's what it looks like. Okay, but we've got a little bit of stitching just here to do. So we need to get our zipper foot. So I'm just going to take this one off. Don't need the invisible zip anymore. So let's see if we can find the zipper foot quickly. I have got the most amazing wardrobe of feet, and yet I keep everything in this bag and never find anything. So a regular zipper foot. I actually don't like this zipper foot at all because it's very narrow and it never ever, the feed dogs are there but it doesn't sit on top of the feed dogs. It has feed dogs at the back on this machine, but for whatever reason it really doesn't grab very well, but I still love the machine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off that little bit of zippage with my zipper foot, just to sort of tidy up the gap there. I think it might be easier if I close the zip. So get some of this thread out of the way. There we go. So I've got the slider out of the way. So I'm just starting stitching where I stopped stitching, or rather I'm starting to stitch where I started stitching with my invisible zipper, the zipper foot, and now I'm just finishing off that little piece there. There we go. And that just closes the gap. Now you might think, gosh, that's a lot of faff. And yes, I think putting in an invisible zip can be a little tricky, but sometimes it's absolutely worth it for the effect that you get, because now when I've given that a really good press, it looks absolutely fabulous. So the next thing we're going to do is actually pop the pocket in. So I'll just snip this thread here, and the pocket is actually attached to the zip tape itself. That's it. I've just got a little bit caught there. Okay, that's great. So with the pocket pieces, oh, here we are. You'll have one pocket piece shorter than the other, about 1/4 of an inch or so. And the shorter one goes on the bottom of the zip. Okay, so let's get the right piece so we don't get confused. I'll put that one to one side. So this is the shorter one, and it's shaped. So it's shaped the same as the panel, okay? And we need to stitch that on the bottom of the zip. Now, what I'm talking about, if I hold this up to the camera, the bottom of the zip is this one here, okay? So we need to stitch it to that. So it's right sides together, and you're going to stitch, and let me just clip that together so you can see. And this time you definitely won't be doing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You'll probably end up somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch, because you've got that zipper in place there, and it's already taken up that seam allowance. So let me show you that on the side. So this is what it looks like. You're actually going to stitch along the edge of the zip and the bag as well. If I flip it, you'll be able to see. That's what it looks like. Let's flip that over again so you can see. And there's pictures in the pattern for you to have a look at to make sure you've got that right. Now what you can do is keep your regular zipper foot on now, and that'll help you get close. What I don't want you to do is to stitch right from the edge of the pocket. I want you to stitch about a good 1/2 an inch in, because we're going to stitch the pocket together, and it needs to have that sort of gap at the end. So you're starting to stitch around about 1/2 an inch from the edge of your pocket. So, taking my clips out, and I'm going to stitch a little way. I've opened up that zip again. And I'm just going to move that slider out of the way. The thing with doing a zip that's enclosed like this is that that slider will have to move all the time to get around it. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Just keep an eye on where you stitch. Keep an eye on how neat it is. And then just continue stitching. And if you keep that zipper foot on, you'll get quite close to the teeth of the zip. So when we come to the end of the pocket, again, you're stopping around about 1/2 an inch from the end there. I'll just do a little back stitch. So if I show you on the side camera, you can see what that looks like now. So there it is, stitched in place. If I open that up like we had it before, so this is the shorter piece, the smaller piece, and that's how it looks. So when we flip that pocket over, it's a really nice, neat finish. But now we have to stitch this one on. So if I bring that in, and you're doing right sides together, line your pocket pieces up. So line your sides up, and there is your 1/2 inch where you've not stitched. And you're doing the same here. You're going to stitch, so you're flipping that panel back and you're stitching onto the zipper tape, but just make sure that your edges of your pocket meet up just there. We're going to stitch those together in a little while. So once again, you're using your regular zipper foot because you can get close to the teeth. You don't need to go near. You mustn't worry about it being right next to the teeth or anything like that. As long as you're stitching it to the tape and to the panel piece, it's fine. And like I said, it's going to be somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. Have you ever wondered what the Gold Club is all about? so many people message me, what is the Gold Club? Okay, simply it's my online sewing group, okay, mainly based on Facebook, where we have a bit of a natter every day. We do Facebook Lives and make all sorts of things. But if you go to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you'll see a Join Gold tab on the top there. And all that means is that you click on that, and you buy it. So for £5, which in dollars is about $6.30, depending on exchange rates and times, you will get 3 patterns every month. I know, it's mad. If you look at the price of my patterns in the shop, generally they're now $4.99. The value of the Gold Club online membership at this point in time is just £5 a month. So you're getting the 3 free patterns every month, and they're all made by me, designed for you. Easy, moderate, fairly difficult. Then we have the Facebook to back that up all as well, the Facebook group. So we have a wonderful time in there. We're all great friends. So if you want to join a great online sewing community, join Lizzy's Gold Club. When we get to that slider again, I should be moving it. So just popping the needle into my fabric and moving my slider. And I think, yeah, I'm going to have to take my needle out. Just move that along. So pop the needle back down where you stopped, and then just follow all the way along. And don't forget to stop stitching about 1/2 inch from the end again. Okay, do a little back stitch. So that is the top part of the pocket stitched on. So if I show you there, that's what it looks like. The slider's there, so it looks like it's puckered, but it's not. The slider is just there. There. Okay, so that's our pocket done. So all we need to do is actually join those pieces together. So we're stitching, and you can see we just move the bag out of the way, and now we're stitching down here, across and up. When we come up here to here, we're just moving that out of the way again, just so we can get that seam to sit nicely. So we're just changing over to the regular foot now. I'm popping my needle back into the centre again, because I had it just slightly, well, 2 little notches over. There we go. So it's right sides together. Move your, I'm going to try, I'm going to peg that back so you can see. So you're folding the front of your, your main body bag, if you like. You're just folding that over, so you can now stitch down here without any of this getting in the way. And you don't need to go right up to the side. Where you stop stitching, you don't need to go right up to the side of that if you don't want to. That's fine. So let's just lengthen that stitch a bit. Okay, and then we're up the other side, and don't forget to move that bag, the main body part of the bag, away. Let's just keep folding it out of the way. So there, if I move that, I just get a little clip. You can just about see what that looks like. So that's our bag actually, our bag front finished. And so that's what the pocket looks like on the inside. Could do with a press. And okay, and that's what it looks like on the front. So it looks lovely and neat. And all of these processes could do with a press, okay, it could do with an iron. close that zip off. We don't need to worry at all now about that zip. We don't need to leave it open for turning through or anything like that. It's perfectly fine now to close that zip. Forget about it, you've done it. But just a little top tip, in as much that you can put a regular zip in there if you want to, all the way across. That's your easiest option. Or you can put an invisible zip in, again, all the way across. Again, it's possibly an easier option than putting it in sort of mid-bag, if you like. But it's just another little thing for you to try if you've never done that before. It is a little bit tricky to start off with, but you'll soon understand how it's put together by watching this over and over again and looking at the pictures in the instructions. So the next thing to do is to stitch, really nice and easy, to stitch the other panel, let's get it right way around for you, to the back part of the bag, okay, which is so easy having put that zip in. So again, you're putting point to point, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, same as the front, keep that consistency. And because it's a curve, again, you will have to manoeuvre the curve. Let's just get these threads out of the way. That's it. You'll have to manoeuvre it because you're going one curve like that and one curve like that, so you just got to manoeuvre them together. But if you've already stitched your pleats, then it's much easier. You don't have to worry about them. So point to point again, and a little back stitch there. Lovely. Just trim that a little bit. You could put wadding in this bag if you wanted to, but I think if you wanted to do the invisible zip, then the wadding is quite a lot of bulk to try and work with, so see how you go. So there's the back done as well. I'm inclined to give this a little press now, so I'm going to go away and press these two parts and then I'll come back to you. So, giving them a little press, and they're all the better for it. You can see how lovely they look. So the next thing we're going to do is actually put the strap handles on, get that bit out of the way. So you know that we've already pre-made this. Now, in the pattern it says to mark 1 3/8 from the sides of your panel. So you're measuring 1 3/8 in, and then you're putting the edge of your strap on that mark. Okay, now what I want to make sure is I got my flowers going the right way. So if I show you, so we'll clip it to hold it, and then we'll top stitch it in place, or baste it, stay stitch. There we go. So that's what it looks like. Such pretty fabric. Okay, so now we'll do the other side. So just check, make sure that your flowers are going the right way if you're using flowers. And you're putting the edge of the strap to that 1 3/8 mark. So it looks like that. Gorgeous. So just bring in the machine and we'll just give that a little stay stitch there, little base. So many people just say so many different things. Now just to save a little time, I'm going straight across to the other side. You don't have to. Just line those straps up, keep them nice and straight. If they're not straight when you stitch them on, they won't be straight when we put the bag together. So it's important to keep them parallel to the top edge of that panel piece. So you're stitching about an 1/8 of an inch. I'm not measuring, but if you want a measurement, it's about an 1/8 of an inch. Keeping that and lining that strap up. It's going to look gorgeous, this bag. A real summer bag, a real summer party bag, a barbecue bag. Oh, amazing. And of course you could make it smaller if you want to. And also I meant to say that, you know, we've got the pleats at the front there and the back, and actually, and which is lovely because it means that the bag actually opens up. If I do that, you can see it opens up. It gives it a different sort of dimension. But if you didn't want to do the pleats and you find that too complicated, you could do the gathering. Now we're going to do the gathering now on the lining, so you'll be able to see how that's done. So we'll put our two body parts over there. So this is 1/2 done. So you can see what that looks like. Now, a little tip here. you're actually, when you look at the pattern, the outer V is where you start stitching, and then if you fold that pattern piece over, it'll be the end V that you're stitching to, and it's just that little section there. Well, I'll show you in a sec. Mark it on your fabric, put a little clip in your fabric, snip a little clip and stitch from those parts, and that has to fit that top panel piece, as you can see there, and I've top stitched it as well. It looks really smart. This bottom part, there really isn't a measurement that you need to make it what size, so I would say gather it up as much as you can. You can see how much mine's gathered, and just use that as long as it fits inside the bag. If you don't have to gather it, but it's quite a large piece of fabric, so I think it needs to be controlled, and the only way, unless you put darts in, the only way is to gather it. You don't want to pleat it inside, that's a bit of a waste of time. So here's our piece, and my little clips, I can just see, and you might be able to see the pencil mark just there. So you're going from this little clip to that little clip, so it's not far, not very good cutting, but it's not far, and at the bottom is the same, so it's identical. So let me just measure it, let me see, get the right bit of ruler. So it's about 4.5 inches across there from clip to clip. We're going on to the longest stitch, and you're going to start about 1/4 inch away from the raw edge. So you're following the line across, stopping just where that, whatever mark you've made on your fabric, twiddle it around, and I want you to come, I don't want you to break your threads, I want you to come straight back, but you're going on the inside. So where we've done 1/4 inch here, I want you to make your second row stitching 1/8 inch. You're coming back to where you started, and don't break your threads. If you've got a machine that cuts threads, don't do that. You want to have enough thread to gather. So let me just show you on the side view what that looks like. And you can see there's my little clip mark there, and the other one is just here. So you can see how that looks, and I think it shows you fairly clearly in the pattern how that looks. I'm just a little bit of dodgy cutting there, but that's how you want it to look. And again on the other side, so you're starting about 1/4 inch in, you're coming up to your marker. Don't worry if you go over that marker, this is just your lining. Pivot, and you're coming inside, so you're coming nearer to the raw edge. If you wanted to, once you've stitched all this together, you could take these gathering threads out. They are supposed to be temporary, but more often than not I'll keep them in. So there is the bottom of the lining done. So you're literally gathering your threads. Now there's a lot of argument of whether you pull your bobbin threads or your top threads. If you have a lot of gathering to do, maybe it's the bobbin thread you want to pull, but this is only 4.5 inches, so I would just go with whatever you choose. So I'm just picking the top 2 threads, so my 2 ends. So I'm ignoring the ones underneath. Oops. I'm just picking up the top 2 threads here, okay, and I'm just pulling those tight. And it really does need to be tighter than you think. So I've gathered up, let me show you here. So I've gathered up quite a lot. I'm leaving it like that. With this one, this is an interesting one, because we're going to start from one end and then we're going to stop, and then we're going to start from the other end. There's a reason for that. So let's just gather those threads up, and you need to gather more than you think. Okay, so I'll just pick my scissors up. There we go. So we're going to reduce our stitch length down to 2.5. Okay, right sides together. The lining for me is the same back and front, but right sides together, and you're going to remember that this is the part that you're stitching. So if I try to hold it so you can see, let's do it so it's the right way around for you. It's because it's shaped. Oh, it's not easy, is it? This is the top of our bag where the handles will go. This bottom edge here is where you're going to stitch onto the gathered piece of fabric. So like I say, right sides together. We're going to start with the top panel first. So let's get it right way around. There we go. So point to point, and we're doing 3/8 of an inch. We've reduced our stitch length, so we're back to stitching normally again. I don't think my needle is quite in the middle. There we are, it's better now. Little back stitch to start. And I'm going to stop there. So I've stitched about 2.5 inches. So I know that that fits beautifully there, okay? But now I'm going to start at the other end. I must say, if you pinned this, you probably wouldn't need to do this bit. But I'm not a pinner, really. So I know that my other end is fitting perfectly now. So as I come up to the gathering, I can make that gathering fit what I've got left on my panel. It makes sense. If I can just pick up my gathering stitches, so don't forget which side you gathered. You'll find that the threads are the longest threads that you're picking up, not the shorter threads. And now I'm just gathering my threads up to make sure they fit. And I find that much easier. There we go. And like I say, it's a lot more gathering than you think. But if you want to do more gathering, you know, if you wanted to put more, you know, length of gathering, that's absolutely fine. It's only going to be the lining, so I shouldn't worry too much. So now that is perfectly stitched in there. You can, like I say, you can take the gathering stitches out if you want to. So we're just going to flip that over, and I'm going to top stitch that, so we've got a nice neat finish. And of course, if you wanted to iron this, it's always good. There we go. Snip your threads, keep neat. So that's what the panel looks like when it's in place. You see those lovely gathering in there. And the double gathering threads is always the best option. So now we're going to put the right sides together with our 2 lining pieces. And I suppose the thing to do is to make sure that however much gathering you've done on the bottom for one, you repeat the same for the other. Or find the middle and make sure those middles meet, because you need them still to fit together the same size. It'd be easy not to do that and think, why doesn't this fit? Or you could start one side and come down like I did before and meet the other side. The main thing is, don't forget to leave a turning gap. So 3/8 of an inch again. So make sure as you come down those 2 curves fit. So I'll do my turning gap on the other side. And to be honest, if your lining is a little bit smaller than your bag, that's no bad thing. So I'm just picking up the threads. So it's the 2 longer threads that you're looking for, because you might not remember which ones you used to gather this up. And like I said, I would do the tightest gather. If you do the tightest gather on both, you're not going to go wrong. So I'm holding on to my threads to keep those gathers in place. Okay. So I've just gone over all those gathering stitches, and now I'm on the home run. So don't forget, leave a turning gap. So little back stitch. I'm just going to whiz over to the other side. Make sure those seams meet up. So I'm leaving about 4 inches, I suppose. A bit more perhaps. I'll just cut that while I remember. There's also a little rogue thread there. So I'm just bringing my side seams together. I mean, this is not crucial. This is your lining. But it's nice if you can keep it neat. Okay, so there we are. Lots of threads, so just trim them away to keep everything neat. Like I say, you could take those gathering stitches out if you wanted to. Okay, so just trim. Okay, let me show you what that looks like. So there's your turning gap just here. So don't worry about the zip. If you've put a zip in, it's nothing to do with the bag, okay? So now we've got the lining pieces put together. Let's put our main bag together. So right sides together. Again, you might want to pin this. 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Get those sides as neat as you can possibly get them, because you'll see this. Those handles will want to fight you all the way. Over your pleats. And while I remember, I pleated mine from the wrong side. You could pleat yours from the right side and they'll go in a different direction. So just line up those side seams again. It's going to be lovely if they meet up. You could pop a pin in there to make sure that those seams sit together. Right up to the top, little back stitch. There we go. Lovely. So it's right sides together. You've stitched your handles, so there's what it looks like. So it's right sides together, so you can either turn the bag or you can turn the lining. I'll turn the lining. I'm not sure if there's a set procedure, whether it's the lining or the bag you turn. Either which way, they've still got to all be turned through again. So I'm popping the lining inside, right sides together. I'm going to match up those side seams. And this is where you could nest those seams if you want to save some of that bulk. And you're going to stitch all the way around. If you've got a machine that's got a free arm, fab. This is the time to use that facility. Actually I do have on this. I was going to say I don't. I think it depends on what machine I'm using, obviously. So let's do it so we can use the free arm. So tuck that lining in. Nest those seams if you want to. Pop it in the free arm. Now what I like to do is to get the needle in to hold everything and then make sure it's fitting, because it needs to kind of go in there. That's it. And then right sides together, 3/8 of an inch all the way around. I haven't done a back stitch because when I come back to where I started, I'll just go over my stitches again. That should be plenty. So let's just keep that lining in place. It wants to sneak out of there. Let's just put that needle in. That's it. That's it. Nest those seams when you come to them if you want to. Not easy to open the seams up when you've got a curve, but if you want to, you can. Like I say, you could use your quilting clips or your pins to make sure these two layers go together really nicely. So I'm just going over those first few stitches. 4 or 5 stitches is plenty. And then cut my threads. And that is the lining attached to the bag. So just pull the lining out, find the turning gap, think maybe I should have made a bigger turning gap, always the way. We always say find a corner, and some people say find a corner that's nearest you, but I tend to go for the sort of stiffer part of the bag and bring that through first. I'm not sure if there's ever a secret trick to turning through. I suppose the less crinkling and crunching you do, the better, because you're creasing your bag up the whole time you're pulling it through. Just take your time. You can take those straps through. Always looks a mess, doesn't it? Let's get that other strap out. You can tell why they call it birthing a bag now, can't you? I'm not sure I like that term, but I get it. Totally get it. So push that through. There we go. It'll come eventually. There we go, it's done. Believe it or not, it's done. So you're obviously going to stitch that turning gap, please. Now, because you've got a relatively flat bag with the pleats, it could do with a jolly good press. So I think what I'm going to do is take this away, give it a press, get those pleats back in place. And the great thing is, if you steam those pleats when you first put the bag together, when you first made those pleats, they will naturally want to go back into place. And it's done, but I just need to press it so it looks beautiful. So I will press it and I will come back to you. So there we are. I've pressed my gorgeous Flora. Isn't that fabric gorgeous? And you can see how the pleats look. It kind of gives it a little bit of dimension. But the great thing is that when you put your hand in there, or when you put your goodies in there, and maybe you've got lots of things that you've bought, you need that extra space. Look how it looks. It kind of puffs it all out, and obviously it does it both sides. So if I was to puff this part out, and because the lining has all that gathering in, it's got the amount of fabric you need to be able to manoeuvre it, so it kind of puffs it out a little bit, and it looks absolutely gorgeous, doesn't it? But again, you can just sort of pull it and get those pleats to sit, which it does really nicely. And then on the front you've got that fabulous invisible zip, which of course you can put your valuables in, and you can make it any size you want. If you want a phone to fit in there, then obviously it will, but it's quite a deep pocket, and it has the lining fabric in there to match. But the panel on the lining, I've decided to use the same fabric as the front, so you can see that's how the lining looks on inside. So there we are. So that is Flora. Like I say, it's got this lovely video to help you make Flora absolutely beautiful. I can see the pleats now. I'm admiring it in the camera here. But it's fully comprehensive instructions there. Everything is listed. You can see all the pictures and the step-by-steps. It tells you how much fabric to get. So it's all there for you, plus the fantastic pattern pieces. So this is Flora. This is perhaps your bag for the summer. Maybe if we're allowed to go to weddings again in the summer, this could be your wedding bag to match the dress that you're wearing. Wouldn't that be glorious? And I hope you make loads.